Welcome to Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf. Today we'll be telling you don't forget to watch the website gamerleafgo.com, kind of like Pokemon.go.com, except it's gamerleaf.com, go.com, to sign up for our mailing list for exclusive podcasts as well as extra entries into new giveaways. Now we join Gamer Leaf and Matthew talking about his new game on Kickstarter, and then after that, Gamer Leaf and Barbarian Leaf will do Kickstarter Corner.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Congratulations on your candidacy in the primary. Outwit your opponents during a presidential primary election by traveling the country, hosting rallies and fundraisers, advertising, and gaining the favor of powerful super PACs. Regions across the country will vote throughout 11 rounds, and you will have to predict your opponent's strategies in order to earn the most delegates and win your party's nomination. Good luck, candidates.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither, but this is the story of the primary, an election strategy board game that's currently on Kickstarter, probably for just over a week now. They're getting close to being done, and we're lucky enough to have on the creator and mastermind behind this great game, Matt. Is that correct? Is that how you fall into line with the primary, Matt?
That it is. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Glad we can get together. So before we get into the game and whatnot, let's rewind a little bit if we could. We don't have to go back very far, unless of course you were born into board games. But how did you get started into the tabletop board gaming world?
Sure. So I probably got into sort of the hobby game aspect of tabletop board gaming just a couple years ago. I moved back to Madison, Wisconsin, kind of reconnected with some old college roommates, and they introduced me into some of the cooler new board games, the Kickstarter stuff, anything that's more complex than Monopoly and Risk, really. So I have to, give them a big thanks for introducing me and kind of making me fall in love with board games just, really a couple of years ago.
Well, what game did they start you off with? Do you remember?
Their favorite at the time was Evolution, so we played quite a bit of that.
Oh, okay, cool. I think I vaguely heard of it, but for somebody who like myself that maybe doesn't know much about it, or somebody else out there, what can you tell us about that game?
Yeah, it was the premise was that every player was creating different types of species, and you could add or subtract different types of attributes that help you eat faster or have better defense or attack other species. And you basically just wanted to create, your little group of animals with different species and outlast everyone else.
So survival of the fittest, if you will.
Exactly.
Well, there you go. Was there a certain species you tended to pick?
I was more of a defensive player. I always got kind of anxious if I committed to creating a carnivorous attacking species, and then if I didn't have the proper attack strength to eat somebody else, then my own carnivore would die. So I was always too nervous to make one of those.
Oh boy, did you ever win, or how did you fare amongst your friends?
I did okay. Rob was especially good. He had a lot more experience with the game and played a few more times than the rest of us, so he was always the favorite to win.
Oh, okay, cool. And you said you got in with Kickstarter and whatnot. So was there more games besides that, or you just kind of saw that there's a bunch of games going out there on the Kickstarters, or how'd that go down?
Yeah, I mean, they introduced me to a bunch of different games and just trying all sorts of different, types of games and difficulties and complexities. And then eventually, I just kind of stumbled across and learned about the Kickstarter community and the Kickstarter industry for board gaming, and just thought it was a really, really interesting place. And it kind of became this thing that was a bucket list for me, if you will, where, I decided, wow, why couldn't I make a game? Why couldn't I put it on Kickstarter?
Well, there you go. That's cool. So, do you remember the first game you backed, or did you just kind of peruse what they had?
Oh, man. So actually, even before like these past couple of years where my college roommates reintroduced me to board games, one of my friends, and also coincidentally he was a roommate of mine, had made a board game. It was more of like a party game called Hooyah, and I backed that, and that was long ago, and it didn't really pique my interest enough to get me really into board games or really into Kickstarter. But that was the first one that I backed. And more recently, I don't even remember what the very first one was. Um, there's been a few that I've gotten that were like 2-player only games, small games. So those have been pretty fun. But I can't remember the other first game, if you will.
Okay, what about most recently? What have you backed, or backed that you're waiting for, or backed and gotten delivered, I guess?
So the one that I most recently backed and I'm most excited for is Palm Island. I think it just looks like a really cool solo game. I love the art and the theme of the island, and it seems like a neat mechanic where you're playing this solo game and you can acquire resources, but it's all very simple. It's just one deck of cards, and depending how you rotate the cards, they kind of take different actions or mean something different.
Yeah, so how did you find out about that one? I did a little bit of promotion for the guy that ran that, and minus that, I didn't other than my perusing Kickstarter, I didn't hear anything about it on, at least on the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and it really wasn't much buzz from what I saw, but they did really good. I was just talking to Brandon, who created Highways and Byways, that's currently on Kickstarter as well, and yeah, I was talking to him about that one, how they did really good, but I didn't see any much buzz. Did you, or how did you find out about that one?
No, yeah, you're kind of right with that. I didn't really see much about it outside of Kickstarter itself, and I think that's how I came across it. I find myself just kind of browsing the Kickstarter recommended projects, or looking at my activity and the other, Kickstarter backers that I follow, and then I just noticed a bunch of people were backing it, and it came up as a recommendation for me, and it looked really cool. So I, looked into it a little further and decided to back it. But I don't know if I saw much in the way of advertising or self promotion on social media or anything like that.
Well, there you go. And the one guy I was talking to, Brandon, he was talking about like how it seems like nowadays that it's got to be really specific. Like it seems like everybody's going for like the smaller game. I want to say that's probably less than $20 game, maybe. Do you think?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact amount, maybe 15 to 20, but it wasn't very expensive at all.
Yeah, he was saying something like that, or like the miniature games. I know they had Batman a while back ago, and just recently Street Fighter launched, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, definitely the miniatures seem to be just crushing it and very popular. I don't know if I've yet found an interest in that aspect of board gaming. I don't think the miniatures alone quite draw me in just yet, but they do very, very well on Kickstarter, that's for sure.
For sure, for sure. So let's see. So you're waiting for that one. Yeah, I had him on. Well, no, we were going to have him on the show, but things kind of fell through, unfortunately. But yeah, it looked like a really good project, like you said. And so you're waiting on that one. So now, minus the primary, because I bet my audience would have me run out in the street and hung if I let you pick your own game. So minus the primary, do you have what's your current favorite game, would you say, Matt?
Um, so lately, and I know I'm a little bit behind here, but my favorite game has been Viticulture. I've kind of been on a worker placement kick recently, and I know it was a huge hit a while back, but yeah, I just kind of discovered it or started playing it, and I love Viticulture right now.
Cool. I've yet to play that one. I heard them talking about it on podcasts, and it sounds pretty exciting. I don't remember fully about it, but it sounds like you're kind of like, are you creating a wine? Like you're running a wine, what is it? Not garden, well, wine garden maybe, or something like that?
Yeah. All the players are running their own wineries, and it kind of goes through the process of growing the grapes and crushing the grapes and making it into wine and selling it. So the theme is pretty fun. I like that, but the gameplay is just really solid. The components and the quality is great, and I think it's a really, really good game.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be a great game. Like yourself, I only got in back a couple years ago. My wife we'd play a game here and there of Parade or Splendor or whatnot, and she got the Kickstarter craze or whatnot, but not this last holiday season, but the previous one. I watched a Rodney Smith video on how to play, what was it, Blood Rage, and sat down with my son. He'll be 10 in September, and just kind of playing that with him. It was like Christmas. I'm big into Christmas or whatnot as a kid or whatnot. I never could sleep through the night, and it was like, wow. And so that's kind of where I kind of haven't stopped since then.
Nice. That's very cool.
Cool. Yeah. And then really been into, like, I like to interview people, and just kind of crazy about Kickstarter, always going to see what their latest projects are and whatnot. And the word on the street is, Matt, that you have a new game on Kickstarter, the primary. What can you tell us about it, Matt?
Yeah, you're right. It's an election themed game, but there's no real politics involved in the gameplay or anything else. The premise of the game is that all the players in the game are playing as candidates within the same political party. So it mirrors the US primary election process. And your goal throughout the game is to travel the country and earn influence and regional votes so that at the end of the game, you can win the most delegates and become your party's final nominee for president. Um, so you don't need to know anything about current events, or you don't have to debate your friends. There's no negotiation. The mechanics are more involved with area control and action programming and simultaneous action. It's a lot more strategic or tactical than anything else political in nature.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask what makes it different, because I want to say the last couple years, well, not even the last couple years, over this last year, I've seen a lot of political games that seems like are similar, like election games or whatnot, and they kind of didn't. I'd say they didn't do too well. So what would you say makes your game different? It's not going against each other. You're on the same political side, or what makes yours different, do you think?
Right. I think that aspect of it, where it's more focused on the primary election as opposed to the general election, where you might have one Democrat versus one Republican, and you're going through all 50 states. It's a little different in that everyone's on the same party, so you're still competing to win the nomination, but there's multiple people involved. Similar to the primary election in real life, the different areas of the country vote at different points in time. So it's not like you're doing all this work and then at the end of the game, everything votes. There's regions voting all throughout the game, and you have to consider, at what point in time a place is going to vote and kind of adjust your strategy to that. So I think that makes it a little bit unique in the political game realm.
Cool. Where'd you get the inspiration for this game?
Um, I would definitely say I was inspired during the last election cycle. I started paying more attention to the news and seeing what was going on with the campaigns. And I think, having experienced that and followed it a little bit more closely, I kind of realized that the political process, and especially within the primary election, was very interesting. How different states vote at different points in time, and why does Iowa go first and kind of set the tone for the election, and why do certain states vote right away and give a candidate momentum, things like that. So I thought it could be a unique way to interpret that into a board game.
Cool. So is there education based in that as well? Because like you said, with the Iowa stuff, I paid attention to it a little bit here and there, but I've always wondered questions like that, but never really went through and found the answers, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of comments how the game could be an educational tool of sorts. It definitely follows the inspiration of the primary process here. It doesn't follow it to a T. You know, I had to abstract things a little bit to make it more fun to play and make a really cool experience as a board game. But I definitely think there's some things that people can take away from playing the game where you're learning about the primary election process and different things that go on during an election. So there could be some educational value there.
Cool. That sounds awesome. So, per se, me and you were to sit down to play the primary, how would that look? I mean, how would it sound? It is what do you call it? A podcast after all.
Sure. So there's 11 rounds to the game, and each of the 11 rounds follows kind of the same structure. So, like I mentioned, there's a map of the US, and each state is grouped into regions. So, the various regions of the country are worth a certain amount of delegates, and that's based on kind of their population and how big they are. And these delegates act as your victory points. So, at different points in the game, each region is going to have a vote, and whatever player has the most influence in that region will win all the delegates from that region. Some regions have a slightly different voting system where there's a first place and a second place, similar to, I guess, the election process in real life, where every state has a little bit different voting process, where some have a caucus or some have a vote. So the structure of each round, there's 4 phases. Every round, you're going to start by drawing a news card, and those are just unique events that will kind of adjust the strategy that you have to play for that round. It might make some of your actions a little bit stronger or weaker. It might force you to make an immediate decision and move somewhere new or anything like that. The second phase of the round is kind of where all the meat of the game happens, for the action phase. So every player has a small hand of cards, and it's identical to all the other players in the game. And the premise is that each player will simultaneously choose 4 cards from their hand, and you're going to program out your strategy for that round. So you're going to choose your 4 cards, and they can each have different actions or the same actions depending on your strategy for that round. And you're going to put them on the table face down in the order that you want to play them. So everyone's going to do this at the same time. And then once everyone's all set, the first player will flip over their first card and take its action. And then the second player will flip over their first card and take its action. And the third player will flip over their first card and take its action. And then it'll come back to the first player. They'll flip over their second card. And you kind of just keep going around one card at a time until everyone has played their 4 actions. So you're kind of having to plan ahead and guess what your opponents are going to do and strategize, knowing that each action that you're putting down, you're going to have to take in a very specific order.
Okay, cool. So, and it says 1 to 5 players. How does a 1-player game vary? Is there like an AI built in, or how's that go down?
Yeah, so there's an incumbent robot candidate that you play against as part of the solo variant. And how that works, the same gameplay carries over from the multiplayer version. You're still going to choose 4 cards that you're going to play every round, but in the middle of those 4 cards, you're going to execute your first 2. Maybe you're going to bust somewhere, and then you're going to hold a rally. And then before you play your final 2 cards, you're going to put 1 card from the bot deck, and you're going to flip it over. And the robot candidate is going to have a series of actions. So he's going to look at a few different criteria that determine where he moves. So depending on the state of the game or what's happening on the game board, he's going to move to a certain region. Once he's there, he's going to deploy some influence or remove some of your influence. And then He's got a special custom die that he'll roll, and he'll use that to block you from gaining more influence from super packs, which is related to some of the action cards that you have. So after you flip over this bot card and you take his actions, then you can go back to your third and fourth cards that you had programmed and then flip them over and execute those actions.
Oh, okay, cool. Is there a sweet spot on the amount of players that you found through playtesting?
So I've played a bunch of two-player. I've roped my girlfriend into doing a lot of playtesting with me, and she's been awesome. I do like the two-player version. There's a small variant included that you can set up the game with some third-party influence already out on the board, so you both have to overcome that influence in order to win these regional votes. I think it really shines at 4 and 5 players. Just the interaction becomes that much more nuanced, and you have a few more people to kind of guess and try to understand and predict what their strategies are going to be. 3 players is fun, but I think with most area control games, if you have one person sit on the sidelines and 2 other people are going at it, that third person is usually in a pretty good spot. So that occurs to a little bit of an extent, but I still have a lot of fun playing with 3 players also.
Well, there you go. That's pretty cool. So you talked about playtesting a lot with your girlfriend and whatnot. So during playtesting, just all over, was there ever anything you had to scrap because it just wouldn't work?
Oh yeah, there is a bunch of ideas, that sounded cool and didn't work, or seemed like a good idea but didn't quite fit with the final, game experience that I wanted to have. So there were a lot of things that try it out, didn't quite work, put it on the shelf for maybe later. But the idea I think going into this was to have an accessible game, maybe for people who had an interest in politics but never really got into board games, where they could pick it up and learn it pretty quick and be fun for them, but also for people who have been playing board games their whole lives, that there's still enough strategy, there's still enough interesting decisions to make that it makes for a fun experience for them also.
Cool. So what was one of those things that you had to pull out and put on the shelf, if you will?
So I mentioned you have a hand of action cards, and currently each player has 14 action cards. There's 7 different types of cards. Each of them have like a slightly different quantity in your hand, depending on which card it is. So there was a lot of different ideas and concepts for those cards. Some a little bit crazier, where maybe you have a wild card or a dual purpose card, or a card that you could only use once and never again for the rest of the game. But for the sake of simplicity and really streamlining the game and just getting down to the core fun elements of the gameplay, a lot of those got taken back out, or potentially saved for looking at a later time.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So during so what would you say the thing you're most proud of about the primary would be?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun game to play, and at the end of the day, that's probably what's most important about a board game, is that it's fun. For the Kickstarter, I made a bunch of review copies and sent them out to different reviewers and people out there in the industry, and I've gotten pretty much unanimous positive feedback, so that's been really awesome to see. And it's a great sense of validation that people enjoy playing it, on top of all the feedback and stuff that I've gotten from playtesters and stuff along the way. So it's just a good feeling, and I think I'm proud of the fact that it's fun to play.
Cool. There you go. Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, you beat me to the punch. I was about to ask. It sounds like you're probably a little biased. You might like it a little bit more than other people, but I was going to ask, are there other people's opinions that somebody might be able to check out so they can see what other people think about it?
Right. Yeah. So, being a first time Kickstarter creator and sort of a first time board game designer, I thought it would be really important to make sure there was a way that, to help make it credible and people to understand that, whether this is going to be a fun game or not, they don't have any previous designs of mine to look back on and say, okay, yeah, like he's a good board game designer or anything like that. So I sent out a bunch of copies to reviewers, tried to get a wide array of people. And then all of those are on the Kickstarter page. I think I ended up sending it out to like 8 or 9 different reviewers. And then there's also some, brief testimonials on there from people who have play tested the game or, printed out the print and play from the Kickstarter. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there. And if you have any doubts or reservations, feel free to look through the videos, and there's some written reviews, everything like that.
Cool. So how did you go about selecting who to send review copies to or whatnot?
I spent a lot of time kind of benchmarking and looking through, successful and Kickstarter campaigns that I thought were cool and unique, and made a giant list of, all the reviewers that I had seen, people who make really good videos or people who can put together a really well done review with nice images and stuff like that. And just started talking to people, seeing if they would have any interest in playing my game, testing it out. Some people do charge a lot of money for these reviews. I understand they take a lot of time, but also being a first-time creator, my budget wasn't huge. So finding people who, had a small fee or were willing to do it, just on their own was also something that was kind of important for me as well.
For sure. Cool. And like you said, you can get all those on the, you can check out all the reviews on the Kickstarter page, and we'll make sure we leave all the links in the show notes or whatnot, so people don't have to type it in, but they'll be able to see it there. Now, per se, somebody's fallen asleep, Matt, it wouldn't be because of you or your game. It would be because of me and my podcast. At the time of this recording, we're just barely into April, maybe a week almost into April at the time of this recording. And I want to say this morning, we dropped our 53rd episode of the podcast for the year.
Awesome.
So they get a little tired of hearing me drone on and on. And so they've kind of fallen asleep, but they're suddenly jolted awake so they don't hit the oncoming traffic. And now you have their full attention, Matt. Why should they take a chance on the primary and election? Let's see here. Yeah, why should they take a chance on the primary and election strategy board game, especially with all the other great games that are currently on the Kickstarters?
Yeah. I think it's a unique take on a political theme, looking at the primary election as opposed to in a general election. But having said that, the theme of the politics and the election doesn't at all creep into the gameplay. So you don't have to worry about negotiating with your friends or being up to date on, some of the hot button issues of the current events. It's a lot more strategic and tactical. And then, just look at all the reviews and talk to people who've played it and watch some of the videos, and you can see hopefully for yourself that it's a fun game.
Well, there you go. And I want to say, like I said, in case they've fallen asleep or whatnot, or they're tired of my podcast, is there any other podcasts that you're on? I want to say you were on a couple, weren't you?
Oh man. I've been trying my best to, just get out there and spread the word, and talking to podcasts and doing things like that. There's a few, and I'm going to have to apologize for the ones that I forget, but I've been with Delve and We're Not Wizards, and I've had just a blast talking to, a bunch of different people in the industry, and everyone's super friendly. So it's a great time going out there and talking to people.
For sure. That's one of my favorite podcasts. I really like Richard over there at We're Not Wizards, so that's good. Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, like I said, we'll leave all the links in the show notes. It looks like you're running through not this Tuesday coming up, but the following Tuesday, the 17th of April.
Yeah. I think it's like 10 days or so, but the April 17th is the final day of the Kickstarter campaign. So it's going to be a nervous last week or so, but I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, there you go. So per se, somebody takes a chance on the primary and election strategy board game. I know you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but when would they anticipate getting their game so they can start playing that, Matt?
So I have right now estimated delivery in November. So it'll be right in time for holidays and also midterm elections. for the year of 2018. So hopefully that timing works well for everyone. And if things go smoothly, maybe you'll see it a little bit early.
There you go. That's good. Cool. So that's awesome. Yeah. So go ahead and stop. Well, yeah, I guess you don't necessarily have to stop what you're doing because we'll have the link in the show notes. But either while you're listening or afterwards, go ahead and click that link so you can at least check out the primary and election strategy board game and check it out on there. Now, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to listen to any of our podcasts or not, Matt. If you haven't, that's okay. But the next portion of our podcast is called The Adventures in Application Acquisition, be it for a cell phone, a tablet, a computer, or even a video game. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be related to board games or the election or anything like that. So is there an app you use a lot of that we can talk about for a moment?
Yeah, let me think. I use a bunch of apps. I'm trying to think of what are some of my favorites at the moment. There's one, it's kind of a funny thing, I guess, with the topic, but there's an app that I like that tells me about other apps that have recently gone for free on the App Store. So they're usually things that you have to pay for, but for some reason they're on sale or something. And I'm a sucker for a good deal. So I kind of like that app.
What's the name of the app? Do you remember?
I think it's called Apps Gone Free, or at least that was the old name, and it might have changed names recently. But I think it's Apps Gone Free.
Okay, I want to say it was a long time ago when we first got our first iPad or whatnot. I want to say I had that app, trying to stay up on it and trying to get all the different apps at free or lower price. I vaguely remember it. It sounds really familiar. So for somebody who hasn't had or used it, you said, what does it do again?
So every day it'll send you a curated list of apps that are usually an app that you have to pay for, but for whatever reason, that day are free. So it'll kind of give you this list and explain what each app does, and then you can click straight through to your app store and download it for free that day. And I think by the nature of most app stores, if you buy it when it's free, and even if you uninstall it from your phone, you can download it again later. So that's kind of a sneaky way to get a bunch of free apps, even if you don't use them, right away. You can come back later and try them out.
There you go. Have you found any board game apps that way?
I don't know if I've found any board game apps specifically. There are a lot of games in general that'll show up on there. I'm not sure about a board game though.
Oh, that's okay. So let's see here. So if you called it Apps Gone Free?
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt, if you own the rights to Apps Gone Free, what would be one thing you would do to make it better or fix it?
I think I would allow people to search. Right now, they just send you a list, maybe 3 to 5 apps per day. But I don't think they have, a database of everything that's free or, on sale for free that you can search or look at different categories or filter. So if I'm only interested in games, for instance, there's no way for me to just say, okay, I want to look at all the free games today that I usually would have to pay for otherwise.
Okay, so some kind of a database or searching and whatnot?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we try to make a green podcast so anybody can come back and listen later on. And so if the creators or anybody who has anything to do with Apps Gone Free, if you're ever listening to the podcast, you heard it here first on Getting Geeky with Game Relief, what Matt would do to make that a better application.
Perfect.
There you go. So minus coming there to your hometown to stalk you, Matt, how would people go about finding out about you or the primary or anything you have going on in the future?
Yeah. So the primary, obviously, live on Kickstarter right now. So you can just search for the primary. Otherwise, for me and other things that I'm working on, I'm on a bunch of social media under Mountaintop Games. That's kind of the company I started so that I could pay all my taxes and be responsible with the Kickstarter. So Mountaintop Games on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. There's also a website, mountaintop.games, that you can find me.
How did you go about picking that name, Mountaintop Game? Is there anything behind it?
I've always been a fan of the outdoors and nature. And then my very first game design that kind of crashed and burned was this hiking and camping theme. So I think it kind of tied into that. And I just felt like, reaching a mountaintop was kind of symbolic of, what I wanted to do within board game design and kind of the quality of game that I wanted to help create.
Cool, that's pretty good. So you said you had a game crash and burn. Was it a Kickstarter game, or would somebody have seen it maybe somewhere?
No, it never made it that far. I put something together. I roped some friends into playtesting, and it just was not very fun at all. And it's kind of just an idea that's on the shelf right now. It ended up being a little bit too much of a simulation as opposed to a board game.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So, So yeah, a lot of times people. One of our fans had asked me to ask the different creators how you can tell when something is ready to go to Kickstarter. How, for the primary, for example, how do you tell when the game was good to go?
Oh man, I think it's definitely a tough question. It's kind of this gut feel. Doing a bunch of play testing, going to different events, and watching people play and getting feedback. You can kind of get a feeling when people are having fun and they're having the sort of experience that you want them to when they're playing, and then the feedback that they'll start providing you is kind of smaller and smaller changes, or people will just say, yeah, this is pretty good. I don't have anything I would change. And I think, a lot of people are perfectionists in the sense that, it's never going to be just right. There's always something you're going to wish that you could tweak a tiny little bit here or there. But I think, the best way to really get that sense is just through playtesting and seeing, okay, once people start giving less and less feedback, or just trying to make small tweaks here or there that, would make it a game that they would want to play or design. I think you're getting really close.
Well, there you go. There you go. Now, is there anything? I know you're focused right now on the primary, as that's what you got going on right now. But is there anything else? I know you talked about the hiking one or not that's on the shelf. Is there anything that we might want to look out for in the future from Mountaintop Games?
I've got a few other ideas kind of on the back burner. Once I decided that I wanted to kind of go full on with the primary on Kickstarter, that it would be my main focus, and everything else, I would kind of just put to the side as far as other ideas for games or anything like that. So, once in a while I'll get an idea stuck in my head that I can't quite get out until I have to, write something down or prototype something really quick. But, my focus has really been on the primary for the last year or so. So at some point there'll be something else for me, but right now they're just in the very early stages.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Cool. Well, we don't want to keep you all night, but we want to really appreciate you coming on, getting geeky with Gamer Leaf. We really appreciate you taking time out of your Friday night to join us, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a blast, and I really appreciate you having me on.
No problem.
It's time for Kickstarter Corner. To begin now. Don't forget to watch the website gamerleaf.com to sign up for our mailing list for exclusive podcasts, as well as extra entries into new giveaways.
He meant GamerLeafGo.com, kind of like Pokemon Go, but GamerLeafGo.com. And now, like she said, we're going to do Kickstarter Corner. So, shall we have at it, Barbarian Leaf?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Barbarian Leaf, let's tell him what we got. Except he's got a game going on, but let's see. So, let's see here. What do we got?
I can't see. Don't we do this?
Yeah, okay, I'll do it. Or do you want to do it?
Arena, the contest table, miniature board game, a fantastic tactical combat miniature tabletop for 1 to 8 players with a co-op dungeon jar. The player versus player team up competition.
Yeah, and they got 15 days to go. They go through when?
Thursday, April 26, 2008.
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. We've got Rebels of Ravenport upgraded.
Assemble your guild, defy the Overlord, take back Ravenport, a competitive card game, strategy game. And the day, $25. And the day is Friday, April 13th.
And then we've got
Cat Rescue, the game of saving cats.
Yeah, me and Princess Leaf played it if you listen to our Friday episode, but what is this about?
Cat Rescue is a top 1 to 4 player
A cooperative
game. Players work together to save cats and adopt them just like them real life.
And they have how many days?
Thursday, April 19th.
Yeah, so they got 9 days to go. And they're making an app of this, you know that?
Mm-hmm.
They're making an app of it. Look, it's going to be a new app, so they should check it out, huh? And then let's see here.
The Gate of Relia. In his house at Relia, dead Cthulhu waits. Dreaming you only have hours to secure the gate, but some among you have other plans. Sunday, April 29th.
Yeah, they end on Sunday, April 29th, and they're over their goal, so they reached their goal, and they got about 18 days to go. They funded in only 25 hours. And then we've also got, let's see here.
There are a ton of board games there, but few combine the gaming mechanics of Monopoly and cross it with the action of Medieval War. Introducing CALAS. Yeah, we did it. CALAS goes by beyond traditional rule and move board games. Players 4 to 2-4, 2-4-2-4 build networks as they choose cards, roll dice, and strategy. Direct their fraction of power characters, soldiers through the detailed gaming. Or is it fine you move that? Of a dice card. These equal cards alter the rescue results of every rule and influence outcomes on the fly. There are many ways to be victorious in the world of CALAS, from winning battle to scoring points and occupying enemies, from winning battles to territories, but the rest assured only one will be crowned king. CALAS comes with a specialist modular gaming board that keeps games fresh, and each character comes with their own backstory and ability and add the excitement.
Yeah, and so it's a 2 to 4 player game. Build networks so they choose cards, roll dice, and strategically direct their faction of powerful characters and soldiers. They got 5 days to go. They're quite a ways away from their goal, but hopefully they'll get it. They end on
April 16th.
Yeah, that's a Monday, so check that one out. And then what else do we got here? We got
WUNDERKAMMER, the card game of Curating Curious Collection. A table game a tabletop game where players complete to acquire unusual artifacts and create the most magnificent cabinet of curiosity. 3 to 5 players.
And they have 11 days to go, ending on
Sunday, April 22.
Yeah, the 22nd of April. And then what else we got? We've got
Operation
Deep
Freeze, a top secret NWO adventure. A project in Latvia was put on deep freeze when the Soviets pulled out their time, and now critical for Icon to scare it before it thaws.
Yeah, thaws before it's not frozen, because it was frozen and now it's going to thaw, and then it pulled out before. They only have how many hours to go?
April 12th. How many more games?
Yeah, a couple. How many hours do they have to go?
44 hours.
Yeah, 44. They're getting close. So less than the 48 hours, and then we've got this 3 more. It looks like Barbarian Leaf. One of them is
Dead Throne open world board game with mechanical market. Dead Throne, an open world board game with never before seen components and mechanics.
Yeah, they're over 50,000 of their goal.
3 days to go.
3 days to go, and they end on
Saturday 14th
of April. So check that one out. And then we've got, if you just listen to our interview just barely, we had this guy on the show, Craig, and he's talking about
a game of post-apocalyptic cult. Wherefore, there, Dell meets Doom. Recruit followers. Secretly bid on surreal powers. Battle to control the wasteland. 2 to 4 players. 60 to 120 minutes. 1 hour to 2 hours. Free US shipping. 67 hours to go. Friday, April 13.
Yeah, definitely check that one out. Hopefully they make it. And then last but not least, we've got the Entrepreneur game
by East Peaks. A fun, educational and interactive game everyone can play. Build business, grow your income essence, all while avoiding bankruptcy. But how many people can play?
That's a good question. How many people can play?
It's on the same day.
Yeah, let's see.
April 14th.
Yeah, it ends on April 14th. That is a good question, though, he asked. I think a couple. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. But I imagine it's on there, so that's cool. Yeah, check it out on the Kickstarters. And so hopefully they make it, but I don't know if they will. And then, yeah. So now it's time to
sign off.
Yeah, so we got to get on with our lives. You got to get on with yours. So go ahead and get geeky.
Stay geeky.
And bring others into the
Kickstarter Corner.
Or Geekful, whatever you want to call it, I guess. And this is Game Relief signing off, and this is
Barbarian Leaf playing his iPad.
Yeah, like always. But he's got to get to bed now, so we're going to have him sign off for reals. Barbarian Leaf out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.